Hey. So my talk is about developer tools, because React and Autoloading and time travel, these are all developer tools. But tools don't exist in vacuum. Tools exist to solve a problem. So what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? There are many worthy problems in software engineering, but there is one particular problem that is close to my heart and that I want to help solve. And that problem is an emotion that I feel. I feel a lot of frustration developing apps. Not just web apps, native apps too. It's all the same. And I feel frustrated not because of the complex challenges, but because of the small mistakes that I make, that I accumulate over time, and I waste a lot of time on them. So this frustration comes from the fact that my workflow is not optimized for iteration. So I have to spend a lot of time tweaking things. Iteration is what I do most of the time. But I tweak the component render method, or I refactor a component. I split it into two components. But I spend too much time battling with small mistakes. So what I want to show in this talk is how I try to solve the problem of my workflow, the problem of optimizing my workflow for myself. And maybe this will work for you, maybe this will not work for you, but I want to encourage you to actually spend time working on developer tools. Because before you can optimize your app, you should optimize your workflow so you have more time to spend working on your app. Because once enough frustration is gone, your programming actually feels fun again, just like it used to do when the tools were simple. So, my name is Abramov. This is my Twitter username and Medium. You might have read some of my tweets or my articles, whatever, except GitHub, where it's Garon, and don't ask me why, it just is. It's like Floyd the phone. So I have some popular repositories in React ecosystem, and most of my work is around the React ecosystem because that's what inspired me to contribute to the open source in the first place. But there are two particular projects that I'm going to talk about today, and one of them is called React Hot Loader, and that's my attempt at solving my frustration with iterating on the view layer. And Redux is a similar attempt to solve my frustration with iterating on the model layer. It's like a variation on Flux. So the status quo for JavaScript for the mainstream JavaScript community is that every time you change something, whether a render method or data transformation, you have to refresh your app and you potentially lose the state. So if you're inside some model and there is a tab there or whatever, you have to do all the same things again. And if you're iterating on your data transformations and you have some actions that cause these transformations, like you click a button and whatever, something happens, you need to redo these steps every time you change a function because you have to make sure that they work correctly. So it does not have to be this way. I think that we can fix it because you don't rewrite your whole application every 5 minutes. Most of the time the changes are really scoped to a particular part, like a particular component, or maybe you're changing a particular Flux store or styles, whatever. It's possible to replace these parts in runtime. And another important part is that I do a lot of typos, I do a lot of silly mistakes like null crashes. So it's important to me that if I have autoloading, I need my tools to recover from errors and to show these errors to me so I don't have to restart my session when I make a silly mistake. There are many tools for autoloading. Some of them are more popular, some are less popular. So I'm not going to tell about everything today. I'm just going to tell you about the stuff that I was working on, React Hot Loader, and it's powered by Webpack. But you really should check out other tools in this list. And you should watch the talk on Figwheel by Bruce Holman. It's really illuminating and inspiring. You should do that. So my React workflow. What is autoloading, right? Let's find out. So I got a button here, and it's supposed to be an example, right? It says timer example, but I don't really see an example because I made a typo. So I'm gonna bring here my editor, and my slide deck is actually a big React component, right? It's composed out of components. And I have this what is Autoloading component. And I see it says timer example. I forgot the angle brackets. So I'm just going to put them here, press save. I get a timer, right? And it's not, it's inside the model, right? And it's still, it says here, but it's going the wrong way. That's a bummer, right? Well, there is this is my timer component, which is pretty simple. And I got this increment method that's in setTimeout. And yeah, I should change it to increment. And now increments, I should make it faster, right? Okay, yeah. All right. I have the license, but my laptop did not work, so I'm using Christopher's laptop. But I do have the license. I just did not transfer it. So I can actually iterate on render method too. So for example, I want to make it look fancier, and I can write something const color equals counter modulo 2, let's say red or black. All right, and I got this div, and let me write style equals color. But that did not work, right? Because it's British English. So I'm going to change it to international English. And it's still mounted, right? It did not lose the state. It did not lose the props. It did not get unmounted. It just, I can continue working on that. So that's a huge productivity boost for me. And that is React Loader. And the way it works, it seems like magic, but it really is not. It's a compiled time transform. And this is your typical React component, right? It has it's a class with some methods like render and lifecycle hooks and some custom methods, event handlers, whatever. But what React Loader does is it takes your methods and it puts them separately, it stores them separately. And instead, it replaces the methods on your class with proxies that call those stored methods. So anytime the app calls render, render is called, then component update is called. So it calls your proxy. It makes proxies that call your methods. But anytime you save a file, it replaces the stored methods. So now the proxies point to the new versions. And when it renders, it's using the new render. When there is some lifecycle hook, it calls the new lifecycle hook, and so on. So every time you change a file, it's going to replace the stored methods, but the instances, they stay the same, and they still have their state. So that was what makes it powerful. And to the outside, to the app itself, to other components, components that are proxied with React Loader, they still look exactly the same. So the app is unaware that this is happening. And of course, it's only meant to be used in development. You don't do that in production. Surely this cannot work without some buy-in from the module system. So here's where Webpack comes into play. So Webpack is a model bundler, kind of like Browserify, but it has this feature called Hot Module Replacement. And the idea of that feature is that anytime you change a file, if it is in hot mode, it's going to emit another JavaScript file that contains only the stuff that you change. So if you change a component file, it's going to emit hot update with that component file. And React Loader applies these updates. So they are just downloaded as script tags, and React Loader does this proxy magic. And the important part about it is that if you have stateful modules, like Flux stores, traditional Flux stores with local state, they do not get reevaluated. So it is possible to use React Loader in a backbone code base if you only save component files, if you only iterate on them, because the rest of the code is not touched. And this is all possible only because render in React does not have side effects. It returns a description, it's declarative. And if something is declarative, if you push side effects to the edge, it is possible to replace the declarative part and still have it work. So thanks, render. And this was my React workflow. I use React Loader for tweaking components. I use Style Loader that comes with Webpack for tweaking the CSS the same way. And I'm using Webpack as my model bundler that allows me to do that. Now Flux. So React Loader is not bad with Flux. You can tweak your components. You can even tweak your action creators because they are just pure functions. So it's possible to for the component to reevaluate reference in the new versions, and then React Hot Loader does the proxy thing. So it's possible to edit a lot of stateless things in your app. But you cannot iterate on stores this way because stores are stateful. If you re-execute the store code, it's going to get the new initial state, right? So the state is lost, the subscriptions are lost, it's a bummer. But it doesn't have to be this way. And as I was thinking more about trying to work around this and to make somehow to fit Flux into React Loader workflow, I figured out that, in fact, store in Flux does too many things. It has too much boilerplate. And I'm not talking about the switch statements. So a lot of Flux implementation, they try to solve the switch statements because they think that this is the boilerplate of Flux. But the real boilerplate is in concepts, not in the syntax. You can always write your own helper that turns something from an object map to switch statement. That's not the important part. The important part are the concepts. So what's happening here? There is this registration, right? But why should a store register itself? It's a bit like somebody registering themselves for a party. I mean, if they're invited, they're going to be invited. If the store, whatever calls the store, manages it, it can register and unregister when it wants to. So I'm going to export this function instead. But now I see that there is a mutation, right? I'm pushing the items. But you're going to trust me on this for now. I'm going to show why it's important. But I'm going to remove the mutation. I'm going to replace it with assignment. I'm going to create a new object. Because it's impossible to write any kind of powerful developer tools if you are mutating your state all over the place. You need to have a way to have references to all the states. So I'm replacing that with assignment. And it's really easy to do with ES7 spread syntax. You don't have to use immutable JS if you don't want to, but please don't mutate your data. Now the getters. Flux stores, they have getters. And it's really handy. You can write stuff like is, to do, complete, and similar. But I don't think it really belongs to the store, like to the core concept of the store. And it becomes apparent when you have getters. You want to use one store from another store, aggregate this data, map something, filter, whatever. And stores begin to depend on other stores. But really all you want is for these functions to use one another. So what you want is to probably move getters somewhat separately. And this is another benefit is you can apply memoization or similar performance optimization techniques. So let's remove the getters for now. And let's export getState, which returns the canonical state of the store in a way that makes sense for the store. Maybe it's a number, maybe it's an array, maybe it's a complex object. But let's just say that each store has some kind of state. But remember when we removed the mutation, this gives us some nice opportunities. For example, this lets us remove the event emitter. How is that possible? Well, whatever calls the handle function is able to call getState before and after that call and compare the reference. And if the reference has changed, then the store has changed. And if the reference to getState result is the same, then it has not changed. So the store does not have to do extra steps to notify about the changes. It's enough to export getState. So it also opens the door for other performance optimizations. For example, when you have many stores and each of them emits their own updates, you have components receiving new state in the middle of dispatch. But what you really want to do is to let all stores accept all the data and then emit a single update. And it's possible with that model because the dispatcher or whatever calls them knows what changed and what did not. Finally, why do we have getState, right? Because we already have a handle function. And the handle function is a function, right? It can return something. So it should just return the next state. And at this point, our store is really simple, but not exactly, because it still has the local state, but it doesn't have to. If it returns the state every time, whatever calls it can save it somewhere and then give it back next time. So we can make it a parameter, right? And this is our slimmed down store. This captures the essence of the Flux store. Flux store is how state is transformed by an action. It takes state in action and returns the new state. This is much simpler than the traditional Flux store, but it captures the same idea. So, state action to state. This looks like a lot like another signature, accumulator value to accumulator. And it's a signature of array reduce function, right? So it's a reducer. It's not a store. It's a reducer. Because if you have an array of actions, let's say in a unit test, plain objects, you can call reduce on them and pass your reducer and the initial state. And what you're going to get is the result state of that reducer. So that's pretty powerful. You can call it with any kinds of actions. This opens the door for very powerful tools that Inspector stores. And one missing thing here is that, as you see, I'm passing the initial state, but whatever is calling the reducer doesn't need to know. It's an implementation detail of the reducer what the initial state is. So I'm just going to add it as a default parameter. And initially, I pass undefined. So that's my store, or reducer, to say it correctly. And I totally did not intend to do this. Honestly, I just wanted something for my talk. But it turned out that I found no Flux library that does it, that works via reducer composition, and that allows some powerful debugging tools I'm going to show now. So reducers plus Flux, it's called Redux. You can check it out. It's open source. It just got over 1,000 stars, although I have not really explained why I built it. So that's my chance to do that. And one nice property is that you don't really need the dispatcher and the whole thing with many stores, because unlike event emitters, functions, pure functions, are really easy to compose. You can just call all your reducers and gather their results in one state object. And that's the root reducer, just like you have a root component at the top of your app. So that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to show you something. I got a to-do app here. It's a common theme. But it doesn't really work. It doesn't do anything yet. So let me close some stuff. I built a thing that I call monitor, and I'm going to uncomment it. Yeah, and there it is. So let me bring it closer. So this is just a React component that I use for debugging, and it shows all actions that ever happened in my app. And my slide deck is a Redux app. So it says that next slide, it changes the current slide. Right, next slide, next slide. So it's action state, how actions change the state. And I did a lot of things. Of course, you will not do that in production. It's just for development. But I can cancel some actions, right? I can go back. I can go back a lot. Or I can go forward, right? So it's pretty cool. But I don't want to have all my actions all the time, like that's really noisy, and I want to work on features instead. So I'm going to commit. It's kind of like Git, right? You have the initial state and you have the staged stuff. So actions are like staged actions. And I'm going to start working on this feature. So if I go back, I can roll back. Okay, I'm here again. I'm working on this feature on the to-do app. And to-do app is just a React component. It doesn't do much right now. There are some other files here, like action types, and I know some people hate constants, but that's not the point. You can avoid them, but I'm going to keep it simple. Action creators, which are just files that return the plain object actions with these types. And the reducers file, which I only have a single reducer that manages current slide, right? It says that when the next slide, go forward or go back, whatever. So I'm going to add a new, oh wait, I don't want to do that yet. What I want to do is, I want to render to-dos, right? I don't have any to-dos yet, but I started working on to-dos, so let me just render to-dos. Save it, it says type error, this render to-dos is not a function. I know that, right, because I have not written it yet. But I'm going to write it eventually. So it's probably, it needs some kind of list, right? So it's you, really basic. This props to-dos, map to-do, and let's say put it in list item, to-do, list item. Cannot read property of map of undefined. That makes sense because I don't have the to-dos in my state, which is here, right? So I'm going to write a reducer for to-dos so that it manages the to-do state. Export function to-dos, and let it just return the fake data. Hey, how? Let's go. Okay. And do you see that? It's actually in the state now. So it autoloaded my reducer. But it doesn't render anything. Why is that? Maybe it's because my debug monitor, which is also a React component, is too wide. You just cannot see that. Yeah, I'm going to make it more narrow. Yeah, these are the to-dos. So it says to-do. Yeah, I forgot the braces, right? I do that all the time. I don't want to spend time on it. Hey ho, that's correct. Okay, but that's just dummy data, right? I'm going to change that to the typical signature. Default state is empty array. All right. So now let's dispatch action because we really want to dispatch actions in Flux. So I'm going to add a constant. Export const add to-do equals, unsurprisingly, add to-do. I'm going to add an action creator now. Add to-do text is going to return something like types add to-do with some tags that I pass. And I'm going to my component. And in fact, let me just try to dispatch something. I just want to know and dispatch works. So I'll grab dispatch from props, it's injected by Redux. Dispatch something. Let's just try. Oh, it says something, right? That's good. Roll back. Don't care for this. Okay, so now I can import. I know that I have not made mistakes so far, so that's good. I can import add to do from action creators. And let me dispatch add to do. Hey. And yeah, indeed, it dispatches add to do hey. But I don't want to say hey. I want to dispatch whatever is in the text box. So I use value. Let's say hey. That works. Let me roll back. I want to reset the node value because it's not cool that it stays there, right? So now, if hey, okay, it disappears. How? Let's go. So I have this state changed by, not really changed, it stayed the same, but it stays the same, but I got these actions. So I want to change the state. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my reducer implementation, and I'm going to write a switch statement. Switch action type. If it's add to do, I'm going to return something like action text and state, or otherwise I'm going to return the current state. So, whoa, but take a look here. It says interrupted by an error of the chain. It tried to replay my actions and my reducer crashed. But that does not mean I have to stop, right? It says action is not defined. Oh, okay, I forgot to add a parameter. And now it says add to do is not defined. So I'm going to import add to do. And now it reevaluates, right? But the result is still messy. And it's kind of hard to look at the current state. There's too much here. I want to focus on the to-dos. So let me go to my app. and put a prop on my Redux monitor telling to only show me the to-dos. That's what I debug right now, right? So yeah, I see the to-dos. And there's some nested arrays. Oh, there's nested arrays. I forgot to put the spread operator. Yeah, it's right now, but it's in the wrong order. I'm almost there. I can feel it. Yeah, right? So the extra nice thing about it is these are developer tools. I mean, I made them like in a week. Before that, I was thinking about it for 3 months, but it's not really, the UX is not really great, but you can add some stuff there. And one feature I really look forward to is adding export as unit test, because these are reactions, right? And they have intermediate states, and you can export a unit test from your debugging session, which is pretty cool. So this is it with live coding. So this is my Flux workflow. I use Redux. I use reductive tools which are not released yet, but I'm going to release them like soon, in a week. And I'm going to update React Loader to have this error handling. It doesn't have it now, but I'm going to do it. So it's also coming. And Webpack to manage all that. There is one last demo. And you know, it doesn't matter what rendering platform you use, right? Because it's the same thing. So if I try to write here, like, hey, oh, by the way, I don't like this prompt. It says, what do you need to do? And I want to write something like wet, right? Okay. How? Let's go. And there's a monitor here. And big thanks to Johannes Lumpe, who helped me, who ported the monitor in 1 day to React Native. It's not really hard, right? These are just React components. So I'm able to toggle the actions back. And indeed, the UI is not perfect. I mean, that's not the point right now, right? But I can toggle them. And I'm able to do the same kind of stuff. Let's say I want to mark is completed. But it does not work. Oops. Let's look at my toggle to-do handler. And it says completed. Oh, it's just this object, right? So let me spread over it and put the initial object there too. But it does not work. Oh, maybe I need to spread first, right? I'm overwriting it. Yeah, it worked correctly. I iterate on my actions, right? So that's pretty cool. And that was, no, that wasn't. What I wanted to say is that these are not new things. I did not invent them. Some people will tell you that they existed 30 years ago, and maybe they'll be right, but we'll never find out if nobody talks about bringing cool functional techniques to JavaScript. Because if you learn a cool programming language like Elm or ClojureScript, you stay there. It doesn't have to be this way. You know, you can share your knowledge. Please do, because you can do functional in JavaScript. You can bring functional programming to mainstream and do really cool stuff with it. My name is Abramov. Thank you. So if anyone has questions. No? No questions. Oh, there is a question.
Your dev tools, can they be integrated into a real editor like Sublime or Node.js or Atom or Emacs or whatever?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it much. Currently, it works as a React component inside your React component tree, and it subscribes to the instance of. It subscribes to Redux. It actually works as a normal component subscribing to Redux, but with the debug state instead of your app state. But if you make a bridge that, and I want to do that, make a bridge that allows you to send the payload back and forward via WebSockets or whatever. You can build it any way you want. You can put this into Chrome DevTools or Firefox or whatever to your friend's computer. I think you can do that. That is it. Okay. Thank you for having me.